Let's go live. Everything is frozen. So this week's parsha is the portion of Vayechi, the final portion in the book of Bereshit, in the book of Genesis, and talks about the passing of Yaakov, and also the passing of Yosef, Yaakov's son, all of the tribes, all the 12 tribes. But beforehand, we have a few incidents where, first of all, there's a conversation with Yosef and Yaakov about Yaakov's burial. And then there is the blessings to the two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim, to the two sons of Yosef. How's the signal? Is it good? Great. And then we have the story of the blessings to Willie. It takes up a big chunk of the parsha, the blessings to the tribes, the blessings to the 12 sons. Actually, Yaakov didn't bless all of them. Some of them he just spoke to. But beforehand, before the blessings, is an interesting verse, which seems to be, it doesn't seem to, if we look in the written Torah.
Oh, just a minute. I'm so sorry. I don't know.
If we look just in the written Torah, we don't have so much explanation for what it actually means. That's why we need the oral Torah, as always. The verse is in chapter 49, verse 1. And the Torah says that Yaakov called his sons, and he said to them, "Gather around me, and I will tell you what is going to happen to you, what's going to happen in the end of days." What are the end of days? Have we come to the end of days yet?
No.
Doesn't seem like it, right? The end of days still. The end of days in Torah means Mashiach. What's going to happen in the Messianic era? Now, what actually happened afterwards? We don't find any continuation to this story, to this telling them the end of days. He goes on to give them blessings, which were very relevant to those days, or maybe relevant to when they were going to go into Israel 40 years later. At the time, they were planning to go to Israel right away after not 40 years later, sorry, after the slavery, so 200 years later, 240 years later, but nothing which talks about the end of days. So we have a few explanations. We have the Midrash, and we also have the Talmud, and Rashi brings it down at the beginning of the parsha that Yaakov's that it was taken. There's one way to say it is that Yaakov was no longer able to. The Shekhinah, the divine presence, went away from him, and the ability to give over the end of days was taken away. He wasn't supposed to. Hashem decided that he wasn't supposed to tell his children when Mashiach is going to come, what's going to happen when Mashiach comes, etc. He wanted to tell them what the Midrash says is he wanted to tell them when Mashiach is going to come. Ketz Hayamin, the end of the day, the end of days. What day is going to be when Mashiach is going to come? So he probably it would be even after, it would be maybe 5,784. Or maybe, hopefully 5,784. But not before then. So he wasn't able to tell it to his children. It was taken away from him. There's another explanation that says that he actually himself forgot the end of days. Mm-hmm. So not only was he unable, he didn't even remember it himself. And it seems to be very clear and understood why he wouldn't remember, or why he wouldn't be able to tell his kids the end of days. Because imagine being Yaakov's children, and he gathers them around his bed. He's about to pass, and he tells them the most discouraging thing ever: that Mashiach is not going to come for the next 3,520 years, or whatever it is. It's very discouraging. It's a source of despair. So why did he want to tell it to them in the first place? What was he intending for?
Good question.
Everything that the forefathers, that the patriarchs, that the matriarchs did, everything in the Torah is exact. Everything's there for a reason. Everything that the forefathers wanted to do is there for a reason. So why did they want to tell? Why did he want to tell it to his children?
He wanted to share his knowledge before he passed.
He wanted to share his knowledge. I mean, Yaakov wasn't looking to show off. He didn't need to share his knowledge just to show how great he was. They knew how great he was. He was the father of the Jewish people. But he wants to tell them something that's going to encourage them, probably, not something that's going to discourage them. So some explanations say that he wanted to just tell his children, but he wanted it to stick. He knew his children were very righteous. They were tzaddikim, so they would be able to handle the news as long as you don't pass it on to their children. Because their children weren't necessarily going to be as righteous as they were. But still, it doesn't explain why. What's the motive? Like, why would he want it? Go on.
You could forgive me for interrupting. I didn't
No,
mean to interrupt.
please.
I was just asking, where is the source? Where could I read that?
That he wanted to tell his children the end of days.
Yes.
In Tractate Pesachim in the Talmud, page 56.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. Also in Rashi, in the beginning of this week's Torah portion in Rashi.
Yeah.
Rashi.
Oh,
The Rashi explanation. Yeah.
Oh, but you mean just the commentary
In the goodness.
Yeah.
in the
It's
Chumash?
probably in the Good Chumash. Yeah.
Gosh, I never read that one.
Yeah.
I just didn't get it.
Maybe he wanted to encourage them.
How would it encourage them?
It's kind of like if someone says they're going to give you something and they don't, you have this like want for it. It's kind of like, but
You know, like ideas in your head.
the idea is put in your head and almost like, well, we don't know when Mashiach's going to come, so we better get ready like now. Like we better
Well,
do
that's
it now.
that they didn't know. They ended up not knowing, and that would have been better just to say, maybe he could say, I know when Mashiach is going to come. I'm not going to tell you, but he didn't do that. He said, gather, and I'll tell you when Mashiach is going to come,
Hmm.
and that was the end of it.
Hmm.
Go on.
Another question.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I've been through all kinds of programs at 770 over the years and everything like that. I don't recall, though, anywhere where it exactly told us what the conditions have to be, what we have to have done and accomplished.
Great answer. Great. Well, it's not just the question. It's also that maybe gives us a different insight, which is, I'll just repeat what Hannah said, is that maybe he was encouraging them to increase in their good deeds, in their merits, to bring Mashiach faster. That's actually one of the explanations that the Rebbe says. The Zohar tells us that Mashiach could have come right after the exodus from Egypt. So they didn't have to wait for another 3,000 years. Mashiach could have come right there and then. There wouldn't have been a second temple and it wouldn't have been a first temple and a second temple. The only temple would have been built. Would have gone to Israel, and that would have been it. It actually says in Az Yasha, which is the prayer that we say every day in our davening, we say it. When the Jewish people crossed the Red Sea, they say the Hashem will take the exact translation, but Machan l'shivtecha alta Hashem, a dwelling place for the divine, for you, and God you made, Hashem
That's
made.
what we're supposed to do.
Now the temple wasn't built by Hashem. The temple was built by King Solomon, right? And the second temple was built later by by the Jewish people came back from Babylon. So what does it mean when he says the temple that you, Hashem, built or is going to build? Talking about the final temple. It says that when the third temple is going to be built by Hashem, it's going to come down from the heavens. You have all these kids' picture books, so you have the picture of the Beis HaMikdash, the temple in heaven, and all the people standing in the clouds. So that's the question: how, if it's going to be built by Hashem, then we're not going to be involved, and how can it be something which is actually down here in the world? And that's where the Rebbe says that we're going to put the door up on the temple. So we're gonna add our little bit, and it will be as if we made it. But ultimately, Hashem is going to make the third temple. We're going to make the final temple. So when we say in Az Yasher, when Moses and the Jewish people say Machin l'shivtecha b'alta Hashem, that a home for your presence, Hashem, you made or you're going to make, that was because they were ready then. If other things wouldn't have happened in between, the golden calf and other sins, the spies and other things that happened, they were ready then for Mashiach to come. They were crossing the Red Sea. They were going towards Israel, and they were going to go straight in and have the Messianic era, have the redemption. David and Shir, if you want to share, please do. I know it's a public group over here, but as we always do, yeah. Go on.
I'm going to say two things. So that's kind of what I was saying, is that the reason why he didn't tell them the exact date is if they knew an exact date, they would think that maybe they didn't have to exert any effort to bring Mashiach. But by setting the expectation, oh, I'm going to tell you, and then not telling, it puts them in a position of having to perhaps think and feel that they need to exert effort to bring it into being. But the thing that I just came to me is that perhaps the reason why he says, I'm going to tell you, and then he doesn't, is so that it's clear to us as readers is that human beings aren't, that's not the province of a human being, but that's God's decision. Like that Hashem decides when Mashiach comes, and that's not necessarily for a person to say.
Well, Yaakov knew it. So meaning it is Hashem's decision, but there was some kind of knowledge of when Mashiach is going to come, which Yaakov knew. But I loved what you said earlier, which is really what we're going to get onto over here, which is it's blanking on me now, but you said something about
If we knew, we wouldn't make the effort. But
yes,
by
yes,
not
yes.
knowing, it encourages us. Or
yeah, so we're going to get to that soon. That point
Motivates us.
specifically,
Yeah.
that the motivation in the motivation in not knowing, in us having to do the work. Go on, David.
Well, I still question what Yaakov knew, because, and the
Yeah.
reason I question this is, supposedly we have free will, and supposedly it's our behavior that matters when the Mashiach comes. So it couldn't, the time couldn't be set unless we had no free will, and it was all predicted. So
Yeah.
it could have been that if this happens, it would be now, then, or else. So he could know something about it, but maybe it isn't like just an exact date that's set in stone.
Yeah, that's also a very important point over here. So just before we get to that, but before we get to what you're saying and what remind me your Kaylin,
okay.
yeah, what you were saying before, is that even if Mashiach was supposed to come right then, which was when the Jewish people went out of Egypt, it was still 200 years until then.
Mm-hmm.
And the Yaakov sons were not going to be around anymore. I don't know about his grandchildren. Some of them would be around, but none of his children would be around by then. So for them, it would be a sad reality also. Even though it's not 3,000 years later, it's 200 years later. It's not that much better. They're telling us that Mashiach is going to come in 200 years. Okay, not during our lifetime. So it's. But what you're saying is very important, and that is that the Talmud brings often we have this in the Talmud that way. It brings contradictory verses. There's a verse in the book of Daniel, and there's a verse in the book of Isaiah, and they both talk about Mashiach coming, and they contradict each other. They say something completely different. In Daniel, it says that Mashiach is going to come slowly, looking like a poor person, and riding on a donkey. Right? Riding on a donkey. Poor riding on a donkey. That's what it says. Isaiah says, maybe it's the other way around. This is Daniel says that. Isaiah says that, and Daniel says that he's going to come on the clouds. V'aru imanani shmaya. He's going to fly on the clouds of the heaven. It's going to be miraculous. It's going to be miraculous, basically. So Mashiach will come in a very miraculous, overworldly fashion.
And will the Beit HaMikdash come down the same way?
That's a different thing. So Mashiach coming is in order. The Beit HaMikdash, according to the Rambam, especially, which the Rebbe quotes a lot, doesn't happen right away when Mashiach comes. So Mashiach has to come, and then after Mashiach comes, he brings the Jewish people close to Hashem, and he gets the whole world to be focused, to understand that there's one God, and after that, he'll build a temple. So it's very important, actually, in today's, people like in Israel, they like to say, the Messianic Jews that want to go on a Temple Mount and just build a temple. Most religious Jews in Israel don't believe that we're allowed to go to the Temple Mount until Mashiach comes and does all the work beforehand to get us to that place.
But are we permitted to, via a video, in the internet, take a look at the Shia?
Yeah, video is fine. There are rabbis that believe that it's okay to go today also, but it's more of a minority.
Okay,
The Rebbe
you
was
can
not
see
of that
it
opinion.
online. Everybody, you can actually
Yeah, you can
go
look at a video.
and watch
Yeah.
it. To the Temple Mount inside.
That's what Chana is saying. Yeah,
Yeah. But isn't there also two Mashiachs? Ben Yosef and Ben David?
yeah, it's a part of that also. I mean, but what does that mean exactly, Ben Yosef?
Yeah,
I mean,
how does that relate?
in general, the whole look, it's not. There's no clear explanation of it. In general, the whole discussion of Mashiach is something that we don't really know. So it's all midrash, it's all in the Talmud, and it's not, most of it is not in Jewish law. So Rambam tells us a few specific parts which are in Jewish law. The fact that Mashiach will come before the temple is built, and he'll build a temple, and other things like that. And what will be the difference between now and when Mashiach comes in a very basic level. But Mashiach, actually, the Rambam says that the only difference is going to be that we're not gonna have the yoke of the nations on us. We're gonna, we'll be able to govern ourselves, live ourselves. That's the only real difference.
And study Torah.
Yeah, and study Torah. But whether there's gonna be miracles and there's gonna be, like we say, money growing on trees or candies growing on trees or all these things. This is all stuff which is up in the air. Even it says in somewhere in one of the prophets that the lamb
We'll lie down with the Lord.
goes even kevis that the wolf will live together with the lamb.
Mhm.
So there's back and forth in the Rambam. The Rambam first he says that doesn't mean literally. It just means that we're going to get along. Everyone's going to get along with each other,
Right.
and that the Jews are going to get along with the nations of the world.
Is there a video
And later
online?
the Rambam says in one of his answers that he wrote to somebody that he believes that there is going to be a miraculous part of Mashiach coming also. And the Rebbe explained it being two different stages, two different times, but it's not so clear. There's no clear cut thing. We're waiting for it to happen. Go on.
In the Jerusalem Talmud, Brachos 2:4, there's an opinion that the Mashiach will be, if from amongst the living, will be from the line of David, but if from amongst the dead, from David, it might be maybe David himself. What are we to think about this? I've not really heard much about this.
Again, it's also part of the discussion. So we don't know exactly, is Mashiach able to be someone that according to the simple understanding, Mashiach is someone who's alive. But is it possible that it could also be that Mashiach could come from the dead? It's also possible, based on that Talmud that you're quoting right now. It's broad,
Thank you.
I hope this is not.
I just want to get back to this thing of of Daniel and Isaiah. So the Talmud brings together these two verses. One that says he's going to come as a poor man riding on a donkey. The other one that says he's going to come in the heavenly clouds. And the Talmud says it depends. It depends if we're meritorious or not. If we've done enough mitzvahs. If we are meritorious, if we've done enough mitzvahs, then Mashiach will come in a miraculous way, and he'll come earlier than expected. He'll come on the clouds earlier than expected. The clouds is the idea of Hashem pushing him forward. He won't come in a natural form. He'll come in a miraculous form, and that will be if we do the mitzvahs the way we're supposed to, and everything is good.
So are you?
If we're not meritorious, if we don't do enough, if we're not good enough, Mashiach is still going to come. He's going to come when he comes in the right, according to the set date that has been put in place, which is the last possible time he can come, and he's going to come as a poor man riding on a donkey. Go on.
I just want to understand something you said. In other words, the concept of the Mashiach coming on the clouds and the Beis Hamikdash coming down from Shemayim on the clouds and everything is just a metaphor. Even it's not going to be that necessarily. I mean, I'm just not.
Yeah, it's metaphor. Well, it could be a metaphor. It could be a metaphor, or it could be something, or it could be real. We don't know. That's what I was saying before. That we don't know. We don't have clarity in this topic. Yeah, we don't know.
How could we?
How could we exactly? No, there are things that we have clarity in. Are things that Jewish law determines. But this is an area where Jewish law hasn't determined. We're waiting for it to happen. It's part of the excitement of waiting for Mashiach. So what's the point of Jacob? So it's interesting. It says that let's say Joseph, for example. We have the story of the famine, right? Joseph said to Paro, the story with the dream with the cows and the storks eating up the other storks. That is going to be 7 years of plenty and 7 years of famine. Now it's brought down that I'm trying to remember exactly. It says that Yaakov blessed Pharaoh, and what was the blessing? Rashi says, he brings it from other places, that the blessing was that the water, the Nile River will come towards him when he wants to, and it will pour out water to all around Pharaoh. He'll be able to take water easily.
Does that mean for the whole country too, in a way, because it's all
It
his
could be,
property?
yeah.
That it-
I think I might be confusing with something else, but the point is that Rashi basically says
not
that
all
even though
of it.
the famine was still, even though there was still famine, there was still hunger, because Yaakov came only 2 years into the famine is when Yaakov and his sons came to Egypt. So there was 5 years left. Those 5 years because they asked for seeds to plant the ground. The Egyptians asked for seeds, so they were able to plant because it wasn't a complete famine. Yaakov coming to Egypt brought blessing with him, and that blessing lightened the severity of the famine. That's one thing. Another thing is, it says that Hashem tells Abraham in the Bris Beis Hasarim, in the covenant of the peace we spoke about last week, that your children will go to a land which is not theirs. We spoke about that, and they'll be slaves, and they'll be afflicted, and for 400 years, and afterwards they'll go out with a great reward. If we look at the math of how long they were in Egypt, they were there for 210 years, not for 400 years.
Unless you count from an earlier date.
Yeah, you could count it from when Isaac was born, and there's ways of explaining that, but that's not a simple way of looking at it. In a simple way, even by the time Yaakov told his children go down to Egypt to get more food, sustenance, he said this. He alluded to the fact it's going to be 210, not 400. Why? It's because the slavery was so severe that Hashem counted it as if it was more time.
Like double.
So he lightened it. He lightened the famine to be shorter. So things can change. Like David, like you were saying before, you could be a set day, but there could also be different changes. There could be different possibilities. There could be a miraculous coming of Mashiach earlier than he's supposed to come. So
I want to make a comparison. I think that was interesting.
So I just want to get to that. The last point over here is that Yaakov felt that if he tells his children Mashiach is 200 years away, possibly, according to the way the Zohar explains and they were supposed to go into Israel right away. But it's only 200 years away, and you guys are doing well. You're studying Torah, and you're doing mitzvahs. Encourage your children to do even more of that, or do it yourself. Add in more mitzvahs, and you'll bring Mashiach even quicker. Mashiach will come faster than he's supposed to come. Go on.
I think that's interesting about the Mashiach, because then in the beginning when we get the Torah, it was like kind of in two ways. And when Moshe first got it, it was like the letters were floating and a little more spiritual, a little more in the clouds. And then we had the sin of the golden calf, and that was smashed, and that didn't happen. And then it was just more like the Torah we could like relate to more.
Yeah.
The second one was like
Similar idea.
Like,
Similar idea. That could be
an interesting parallel.
Yeah. It's not broad here, but it is an interesting parallel. And I wonder if we could connect it somehow.
I have a question about the Mashiach. So is it, because I really don't know much about the literature, so is it really stated that it's an individual who's going to come and bring this, or is it, or because my idea has always been that we are sort of the seeds of Mashiach, and Mashiach will flower when we are doing the things. When we are doing all the things.
Well, they're both true. They're both true.
That we are.
Yeah. So they're both true. It says star will spring forth from Jacob, and it's different explanations. One explanation is that every Jew is that star.
Mm-hmm.
Every Jew is that star that collectively, when we all are doing what we're supposed to, or maybe the majority of us, or however we can explain it, we can bring Mashiach. Mashiach is ready to come, but the Mashiach is still a person, and that's the way it's been believed, the way it's been accepted from the sages throughout Jewish tradition, has been that Mashiach is going to be a person. It's going to be an individual that is going to come and is going to redeem the Jewish people through his persona, through his knowledge of Torah, whatever it is. So it's going to be a specific individual, but the world has to be ready for it. It has to be something collective also.
Thank you.
Yeah. So we've got these two different ways that Mashiach can come. Can he come miraculously, or will he come when at the set time? So the set time is not so far off. Yaakov wants to tell them it's not going to be so long. Speed up your good deeds, and Mashiach will come faster. But for some reason, he wasn't allowed. It was taken away from him. The ability of telling of passing along to his children was taken away, either he was taken away from him also, he forgot it also, or that he wasn't able to tell it to his children. Why is that? And that is because Hashem wants, go on, David.
So earlier, I guess it was in last week's Parsha, two of the brothers cried on each other's necks because they saw the destruction of the temple in the future. So wouldn't this already contradict what we're talking about now on the timing of Mashiach?
Great question. It's a great question. I'm not sure what the answer is to that. There were a number of allusions of. It's fine. You need to go out, Hannah. There's a number of times where Yaakov alludes, I believe, to the temple and the territory of the tribes in Israel and various battles, I think, even. So it's not just in last week's parsha; it's other times also. It's a good question. I'm not sure what the answer is. In general, there's the whole discussion of Yediyah and Bechira, which is, how could we have free choice if Hashem knows everything is predetermined? Hashem knows everything should be predetermined. Let's get into that discussion also. But I'm not sure how to answer that question. Yaakov, Hashem didn't want him to tell his children. Why didn't he want him to tell his children? Because ultimately the work we are supposed to be, we're not supposed to. There's two different ways that we can do mitzvahs, or that we can do our work in the world. Everything has the strength from above. Hashem gives us the awakening. Hashem gives us the ability. Hashem gives us the strength that we should be able to do certain things at certain times. We should be able to have effect in certain ways by doing mitzvahs, etc. Hashem puts us where we are for that reason. But there are different ways that can be. There's a way that can be felt in a very revealed way, and there's times when it's not. And there's a way that it's not felt. That Hashem is giving us the boost, the spiritual boost, because otherwise we're material beings. We can't do it without Hashem's strength. But it's not felt that Hashem is giving us the boost. We have in different times in the Talmud, different places where it says there was a bas kol, there was a voice from above. The voice from above told the people to shuvah, or it told them to study Torah, or other things like that. That is a very clear message from God, which is like, wow, people say, the Rebbe told me to go to this, to do this and this. If the Rebbe would tell me to do it, I would do it. Okay, of course, because then you have you have it right in front of you. You've got the spiritual leader telling you what you're supposed to do. But the way Hashem really wants it to be is that we should serve Hashem. We should do it fully ourselves. Yeah. Obviously, we have the strength from Hashem, but we shouldn't have the motive, the motive of Hashem told us this is going to happen if we do this and this. By Yaakov telling his children when Mashiach is going to come, and that they can do it sooner, and he's going to give them a boost, to give them a push. What he's really doing is he's taking away the ability for them to do it fully the way Hashem wants it to be, for it to be in a way of shleimut, of completion. Will they bring Mashiach faster? Yes. Mashiach will come. He'll come miraculously. He'll come in the clouds. But Hashem wants them to do the full work. He wants them to have the full effort. Or even more so, a more deeper way to understand it is that if we do something for an ulterior motive, or we do something because we have a power that's pushing us in that direction, then what happens when you take away that power? Yeah, what happens when you take away that motive? We're left where we are. So what Hashem wants is that Mashiach should come. It should be a complete redemption that will be forever, which won't have any changes to it. It'll be a new state. But if we haven't changed as people, we are not ready for that. Go on, David.
Well, I have trouble with this argument when I just look at the role the Rebbe played. So if Jacob were to encourage his sons and use that as part of an encouragement to do the right thing, that's very parallel to what the Rebbe did all the time with people, giving them specific things that would encourage them to do more of the right thing do it more rapidly and whatever. So I find this is kind of a funny argument if you actually look at the history of the Rebbe and how he dealt with people.
Not just the Rebbe, all the Jewish leaders throughout the ages.
Yes, there you
right?
go. Yeah. So I have trouble with it.
But there's a difference between helping people harness their natural capacity in the right direction, which is what I perceive the leaders doing, versus do it like I'm telling you the prescription to get there. This is how we're going to do it. Because at the end of the day, in my very uneducated view, and please correct me if I'm wrong, like the whole point of this project called Judaism is for us to have a close and revealed relationship with God such that that our behavior is allowing God to come forth into our world in a very direct way. And there's sort of the carrot, like if you do this, you'll get that. That's one thing. But then I see you're like this. I think this behavior or this actions will help you, your natural capacity to do that objective, which is to bring God into the world more easily. And they're different.
Hence the mitzvahs.
Yeah. So I agree with all of that. I just think that we're projecting a lot onto what it would have meant if Jacob were to have shared when Mashiach was coming. We're saying that would have been fundamentally different than what the Rebbe does. And I'm not convinced that's the case. I think it could be revealed in a way that was encouragement. It wasn't. So I think we're projecting something on it that isn't necessarily there. And so if I look at it at the simplest level, it seems like it could be part of the right kind of a role for the greatest of the generation and not necessarily the wrong role.
That's where another element of all this comes in, and you're right. Is that you're both right? I mean, in Torah we can carry a lot of right perspectives at the same time. There's Shivim Panim LaTorah, 70 faces of the Torah, and you're both saying what Torah says, and we're all saying that. And that is that if this was put into Torah, and if Jacob wanted this, then it must have been right. It must have been okay. It must not just okay. It says the Tanya says that he brings from this maybe from the Zohar that the forefathers, the patriarchs, they were Merkava, they were a chariot to the divine. Just like we drive a car, the car can't move anywhere without us putting our feet on the gas. So too or more so that's not the point. The point is more that the car the car goes where the car is an extension of us, so to speak. So too with the forefathers, the Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, they were just like a chariot for God. So if Yaakov wanted something, that's because Hashem wanted that also. It can't be that Hashem didn't want it. There was a change of plans. And that change of plans was for a reason. But that's part of Torah. We find that Moses wanted to show the Jewish people the land of Israel. Moses wanted to go into the land of Israel. And God said, you'll see it instead. But it's brought down that by Moses wanting it, it already happened to a certain extent. Mm-hmm. Yeah? It says, and there are many things like this, that by having a good thought about someone or saying something good about someone, we bring out their abilities. Says that talking bad about another person, this is about talking, but the same idea could be in thought. Talking bad about another person is bad for all three people. The one who's speaking, the one who's listening, and the one who's being spoken about. Why is it bad for the one who's being spoken about?
Well, you're not supposed to.
When I say bad, I mean, why is it a sin for them?
Well, you're not supposed to embarrass a fellow Jew and stuff like that.
You're right. So that's bad for the one who's listening and the one who's speaking. But the one who's being spoken about is not his fault. Poor guy, he's being spoken about.
Well, thoughts have wings.
Exactly. Thoughts have wings and speech has wings. And when we talk about someone, we are bringing out, we are actually creating bad energy for that person in the world. We are creating we're making it more difficult for them to do the right thing.
What is the source for this?
Talmud. Lashon, I don't have to find when the Talmud, but the expression is Lashon till he soy, kata till he soy. I think it's somewhere in It's somewhere in. I just learned it not so long ago. Rabbi Ferris, Lashon Tilisai, Katal Tilisai. You know where it is?
Where?
You don't know. Okay, we'll find it. Yeah. Okay, we'll find it soon. Anyways, I just wanted to. We have a couple of minutes. I just wanted to.
It's in the town, man.
In the Talmud, yes, in the Talmud.
I'll settle for it.
Because you said before, you said the Jerusalem Talmud page
One of
this and
those
this. I was like,
You
wow,
know,
I'm
you
dealing
could
with
probably
a.
books, right
Popcorn?
Yeah, we have
could
the.
Popcorn?
probably go
Yeah.
Google it. Like which,
Google.
like
Yeah.
let's do Rabbi Google.
So
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, here. Well, then I'll.
Also, Hayom Yom talks about it.
So Jacob's desire was not lost. When Yaakov wanted it, this actually happened to a certain extent, meaning that a certain new energy was put into the world, is that we have a connection to. We have a maybe more of a push. Maybe we don't feel. Maybe we don't know the date when Mashiach is going to come. But there is some energy in the world which is pushing us, encouraging us, giving us a boost that we should be able to bring Mashiach faster and sooner. And there have been many Kabbalists throughout the ages that have said different dates when Mashiach is able to come. The Rebbe said that after the 1967 war, the Six-Day War in Israel, that the Rebbe cried, and he said there was this, a few months later, there was a sound of the shofar blowing. That if we would have used out the possibilities that we had, if we would have used out the potential that Jewish consciousness was way more was awake and felt more than for that in a way that it hadn't been felt for so long, Mashiach could have come. But the Jewish leaders at the time didn't push it enough. And we were too focused on the strength that we have as an army and getting into all of the not noticing the miracles enough. And because of that, Mashiach, it was slow. That date was lost. That time was lost.
Mm.
I mean, we look back. We could also look at right now. And we never know when could be the right time. And we have that ability to bring Mashiach, to bring Mashiach faster. And the two ways is that Yaakov forgot it, didn't know it also, or that his children didn't know it also. That's another part of this. The Rebbe says that Yaakov had to feel what it meant to work without a motive also.
Mm.
Yaakov had to feel and put the energy into the world also. Yeah, there's a lot more to all of this. Yeah, and the fact that Yaakov wanted it, he wanted to say the date, is a sign that we have to. This should be this thirst or this desire, or this wanting, to know when Mashiach is going to come, but also for Mashiach to come.
Right.
We have to ask for Mashiach. We do it in the prayers, but it has to be really part of just we should embody the way Yaakov lived, just like Yaakov wanted Mashiach to come, and he put his full energy into that. He desired it. So too, we should have that desire. Whether we're gonna, and we have also the strength. We have also the push, and we also have the ability to do mitzvahs with our own strength. Maybe part of what you're saying before, David, that the Rebbe put us in a situation today that we don't have the Rebbe telling us clearly what we should do, when and what and how, and the world is changing in certain ways, and we have to apply what we know from Torah, from the Rebbe in today's world. But the Rebbe is still leading us, and we have Jewish tradition is alive more than ever. We're like a midget on top of the shoulders of a giant. So we haven't got lower. We might not be as great as the giants. We might be midgets in our knowledge and in our conscience and everything else, but we're on top of them.
Yeah.
So we have the ability to do mitzvahs with our own strength, without a motive. At the same time, we have the motive. We've been directed what we should do, and we have the energy that was put into the world by Yaakov, desiring for Mashiach to come. That Mashiach can come faster and sooner through our asking for it.
Through
our asking and begging Hashem that it should happen sooner, and doing what we can to hasten Mashiach's coming.
Which do you think should take priority?
There's no reason for one to take priority. There's times for each. There's times in the Amidah when we ask for Mashiach to come fast, that may the offshoot of David, your servant, and grow, sprout out. We say it 3 times a day, during the weekday, and then there's times, and then during the day we have to be. We can't just sit and pray all day. We have to go out and do mitzvahs and be busy in the world.
And all of this, the simcha.
The simcha with joy. Very good. Yeah. Okay. Anyways, wish anyone who's live with us, you should have a good last week of 2023, and we'll probably see you again next year. Next time, I'm saying will probably be the next time we see you. We're off to LA for a few days, so
Oh, have a wonderful trip.
thank you.
Really.
Take care, David.
Sure.
Shira, nice seeing you both. Be well, Shavua Tov.
Your family there?